So coming to today's topic, how to reset India's economy, the way forward. We have expert MRB,
Yeah.
as we all know as MRB.
Yes.
So let's begin with you, Dr. Swamy. Your few words of introduction on this, and then maybe MRB can jump and give his intro, and both of you can debate on the subject.
No, he's our guest, so we'll ask him questions.
Okay.
He has to answer.
Okay.
First of all, first question I'd like to ask him is, you have seen now what I had been saying from 2015, that the growth rate is decelerating, and in another, by the time 5 years are over, which is still to be over, but we're in a bad shape. Now, the fourth quarter of 2019-20, which is January 1 to March 31st, we now find that was pre-corona, because even the lockdown was started only on 25th March. So practically the whole of March was, had no restrictions due to corona. So January, February, March, they form the fourth quarter of the financial year 2019-2020. And there, the growth rate is just 3%, 3.1%. This is not my estimate. It is the estimate of this Ministry of Finance, which has brought on the 30th of June a publication saying macroeconomic data of the year 2019-2020. In that, they have shown that the 2019-2020 financial year, the growth rate had come down to 4.2%, and the fourth quarter was only 3.1%. Then came the lockdown and the corona restrictions and so on. And now I had been saying 25% minus it will be, but it's turned out to be what, 29.4% minus?
23.9. 23.9.
Okay, so a little short of 25.
Yes.
And my view is that when you take the year as a whole, in next year, next March 31st, you will find that this financial year would be somewhere close to 30-35%. That's a huge drop, but that is in GDP only. So I'd like to know from you, what is your analysis? What about the breakdowns? What is the situation in unemployment? What is the situation in whether a particular class, the poorer classes, have been hit harder? What is the difference between the rural and urban situation? What is the difference between the slums of a city and the rich parts of the city? I would like your prognosis as to where we are heading and how long do you think it will take to turn it around?
Doctor, I will start with the last quarter of the previous financial year, which you very rightly pointed out. That is the best benchmark we have for a normal time, the latest benchmark for the normal time.
Yes.
Now, let me go back to the budget of 2019, which was presented in the parliament after the elections in July 2019. And there, at that time, the Honorable Finance Minister estimated a fiscal deficit of 3.3% for the financial year 1920. Fair enough. That was a reasonable number. Then she comes back on 1st February 2020, and this time 305 days of the year has elapsed, and she has got just 60 days more. And she makes a revised estimate of the budget numbers, and she tells to the parliament, I will end this year with a fiscal deficit of 3.8%. I am overshooting the target by 0.5%, but that's well within the FRBM target. Now, the June report, which you very rightly alluded to, makes a very interesting but very, very serious comment that the fiscal deficit of the country for the year 1920, we ended up with a fiscal deficit of 4.6%. Meaning, even as late as February 1, 2020, we could not estimate, comprehend what was the fiscal deficit that we are likely to end on 31st March. Now, there is an interesting paragraph 28. I would like to read it for the benefit of the viewers, because some of the viewers think that we are filibustering, or we have got certain grudge or certain personal animosity with powers that be. So they come about and slander or abuse us. So there is something that we have to read from the Finance Ministry's own document to tell what exactly is the position. Para 28, I quote, COVID-19 has also impacted government fiscal revenues via its detrimental impact on both income and production side of the national accounts. Now, how did COVID come and impact 2019-20? But for 1 week, the last week of 2019-20, we don't know. Yeah. And then it adds, as per provisional accounts, data of central government finances for 19-20, the fiscal deficit for 19-20 provisional account stood at 9.4 lakh crores, which is 4.6% of GDP, 0.8 percentage points higher than the revised estimates. This is attributable mainly to shortfall in revenue collection. So obviously, the engine had started spluttering and virtually come to a halt by the last week of February, March, and that was palpable. Now, from that, see, the problem is not that it stopped. The problem is that the inability to comprehend that it has stopped. So it is not the question that the doctor doesn't know the diagnosis. The doctor doesn't know what is to be done with various type of diagnosis that he has to do. Not only is he unable to write a prescription, he doesn't know what is the diagnosis that is to be carried out. Now let me give. So what happens that today they pick up a random statistic, like suddenly taking a month of sales of motorbikes, or number of punctures being repaired in the puncture shop of bicycles, and then say, oh, look, there is a V-shaped recovery. V-shaped recovery cannot be done on a daily basis or a weekly basis. You have to have a certain amount of data that comes in over 2 or 3 months. And you agreed, doctor, that we were in a lockdown mode substantially during the first quarter of this fiscal. And the second quarter of this fiscal, we are still in some sort of lockdown mode. So all these statistics are at best aberrations. So you can't draw any meaningful conclusions out of it. So my humble suggestion is that there is a painting, a static painting in the North Block, which shows some sort of green shoots. And every day morning, that painting is being looked at by the mandarins in North Block and say, look, there is a green shoot out there. The green shoot is nothing but a painting. And better they keep quiet for 6 months till 31st March. Let 2 quarters roll out when things do subside, and then start making meaningful conclusions out of data. Data today is so dispersed and so irrelevant and so random that we cannot draw any meaningful conclusion. This is my humble submission on the data point. But the larger issue is that there is a failure to comprehend, much less to mend. So that is the bottom line I would like to point out.